this week's Republican debate was a healthy mix of fact and fiction, as well as a few excellent one-liners. But what does it all mean moving forward in the race for president? That's the question John Keller is asking in today's Keller at Large.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. As we're taping this on Friday morning, some breaking news. The CNN Republican presidential debate has just ended after 3 straight days of debating, and it only ended when Donald Trump wrote a check and purchased CNN and pulled. Okay, just kidding about that, but that thing certainly was endless. But let's talk about what happened, because it certainly was significant. With our panelists this week, we're pleased to have with us Laura Dzenski, reporter for Politico Massachusetts and author of the Daily Massachusetts Playbook. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, John.
And also joining us, my partner in crime, Joe Matthew, anchor of the morning news on WBZ News Radio 1030. And as I always say, when you join me here, Joe, so that's what you look like.
This is it. I'm sorry to let you down.
I thought you were much older / younger /
Thinner?
Thinner, yeah.
And don't act like you didn't love all 3 hours of that, but go ahead.
Well, I don't know if I loved all 3 hours, but it was interesting and enjoyable. And let's talk a little bit about the focal point, the front runner, Donald Trump. He has risen to the top of the polls, in large part on a sense that he's much more authentic than his competition. This is what you hear from his supporters. He's speaking truth to power. He's raising issues that otherwise wouldn't have been raised. But in Wednesday night's debate, he had to recant his derogatory remarks about Carly Fiorina. His judgment of female beauty apparently underwent a dramatic change. And he got caught flat out lying about his efforts to get a casino license in Florida. Meanwhile, his poll numbers seem to have stalled. Lauren, let's start with you. Is the worm turning on Mr. Trump here a little bit?
Absolutely. And on top of that, what he said about vaccinations causing autism, the Boston Globe reported today that he had donated to Autism Speaks, which is completely contrary to what he suggested in the debate. He had donated upwards of $50,000. So again, the harsh glare of the spotlight on Donald Trump is really revealing a lack of authenticity, which is really the primary rallying cry for much of his supporters. So I think his time is limited.
Is that going to matter? Joe, do you buy that?
What I've said before is what I will say again on this, in that everyone in the media has been wrong about Donald Trump, me included, in many cases until now. And from the authenticity issue, when you talk to supporters, they don't care what he said. It's not about what he said. It's the fact that he's not a politician. He's not from Washington. He's made money. And he says he can make America great again, which they believe more than all the talking points from all the other people on the stage, at least until now. Whether Carly Fiorina started to turn the tide on that, we'll see. But I'm not making any predictions there.
Well, okay, that's probably wise. But you mentioned Fiorina. New Hampshire has a well-established track record of liking to elect female politicians, both U.S. senators, the governor, I believe at one point the Speaker of the House, and so forth. Could that be fertile ground for Fiorina going forward with the boost she's getting now?
Potentially. I mean, I think post-debate she had such a solid performance, and it really stands to be seen in the polls whether her solid debate performance can translate into a boost.
Well, you have some experience covering her, Joe.
Yeah, I've been following Carly Fiorina's career for a long time.
Yeah.
Before I got into politics, I was a business reporter. And going back to CBS Market Watch, when that still existed, that was the time in which she was reigning over Hewlett-Packard and conducted the purchase and merger with Compaq and laid off tens of thousands of people and dealt with what she referred to the other night in the debate as a dysfunctional board. And that raised some questions for people who watched that all unfold back then, saying, okay, well, a dysfunctional board was the problem, and you were effectively pushed out. There's no more dysfunctional body than Congress. And if you're going to be the president, you need to deal with that, and you need to work with that. New Hampshire is fertile ground. I will actually predict that her numbers are going to go up. She was a star of the debate. But when we start drilling down on the layoffs and what happened with HP, and remember, she lost badly that race against Barbara Boxer for Senate a couple of years ago in California. All that's going to come up, too.
Interesting. Well, we know from the Mitt Romney experience that CEOs face a real gauntlet when they run for president. Let's take a short break, and when we continue, we'll talk a little more about this and also about the new odd couple of Massachusetts politics. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking politics with Laura Dzenski of Politico, Massachusetts, and Joe Matthew of WBZ News Radio 1030. One last quick thing about Trump, and then I want to shift gears here. Thursday night at an event in Rochester, New Hampshire, he took a question from a voter, really more of a rant, who was talking about how President Obama is a Muslim, not true, and questioned whether he's a citizen. He is. But those claims went unrebutted by the candidate who, and I guess the questioner suggested, wanted to know how we get rid of the Muslims. And Trump said something along the lines of, we're working on that. Is this a problem? I mean, at one point, Trump was arguably the highest profile public spokesman for the birther movement that claimed that President Obama wasn't born here. What do you make of this, Lauren?
I mean, I think this lends to, what Joe said earlier. This is a candidate that has had every gaffe that we can think of and has said all of the crazy things that, a candidate could possibly say, and yet he still continued to remain in the lead in the polls. It stands to be seen how this will actually affect him, if it does at all.
I mean, it won't bother, I'll take a wild guess, 10% of the voters who agree with that.
Right.
People who are bothered about this, though, simply haven't been paying attention. It was only in 2011 that he was standing at the airport there talking about how proud he was of himself to force the White House to issue this birth certificate, which he questioned after its release. This is old news.
Yeah. All right. One other thing I wanted to get into with you, too. At the Politico Playbook Breakfast the other morning, which you co-hosted, Lauren, the star guests were Governor Baker and Mayor Walsh, Republican and a Democrat. And then later that night, there they are on Nightside with Dan Ray for not their first appearance. We just have about a minute here, but let me start with you on this one, Joe. What do you make of this sort of odd couple bromance that's going on here between these two?
It's really something, and when you see them together in action, we hosted a WBZ business breakfast with the two of them. It was a room full of 500 people, not one person left over the course of the hour. Really compelled by this. They have humor, they get along, they're friends, but remember, they are also politically dependent upon one another. They are important to one another's political career. We'll see what happens when Mayor Walsh runs for re-election.
Well, and when Baker runs for re-election, I mean, in the past, the mayor of Boston is a central figure in the Democratic political machine.
Absolutely.
That could be interesting, Laura.
And I think it's very smart for both politicians to curry the favor of the other one. And it's clear that they just simply get along.
Yeah.
It's good politics. People like that.
And
it's
people want these guys to get stuff done. There'll be time for the campaign later.
Exactly.
Thank you both for being here. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, and thank you for joining me right now. It's back to my colleagues for more WBZ News.